Hey everyone, I'm Nathan, and this video is a little bit different. Today I'm going to be introducing you all to my original characters that I've had for a long time. The earliest traces of these drawings go back to like 2016. I've definitely become a much better artist and storyteller since then, so I hope you guys enjoy all the changes that I've made to them and enjoy their stories. This is a fairy tale, a gay fairy tale, about three friends named Hiatus, Ruin, and Folly. Without further ado, let's get into the video. 1. Hiatus, in which a mother sews together her son. So I've always loved fairy tales. As a kid, I was obsessed with Disney, and in high school, my favorite TV show was Once Upon a Time, and my favorite musical was Into the Woods, so I was just a little bit obsessed with it. And then I watched Over the Garden Wall, and my brain chemistry became permanently altered. I just love how that show balanced lighthearted wholesomeness with such gloom and gravitas and themes about what it means to be a good older brother and to grow up. I was obsessed with that show. So I got this idea for a story about a boy who was adopted by a witch, and that's where Hiatus comes in. This is Hiatus. That wasn't his original name. When I first imagined the story, he was a child, and it was also a contemporary fantasy because I also loved books like Percy Jackson, so I was like, oh, I'll set it in the real world, but there's magic. While this version of the story was cute, I was still really young when I wrote it. I didn't understand how to tell a story yet. I kept trying to make this girl that you see in this drawing from 2017 the main character, even though I was much more interested in telling Hiatus' story because it's a story about a gay boy, and I'm a gay boy, so like you can imagine why I'm interested in talking about a character who has a similar experience as mine. So I set that story aside and I started working on my gay fairy tales. So we're no longer in the modern world. It's very much a land of once upon a time. And after excavating Hiatus from that story and moving him here is when suddenly he really began to shine and come into a fully rendered character. And I did that by making a couple of changes. In this new version of the story, Hiatus is still the child of a witch. However, he isn't adopted by her. He was created by her. More specifically, he was sewn together by her. So I made Hiatus a living rag doll, sewn together by his mother, the town witch. And this is so perfect because Hiatus' story deals with the relationship of a mother and a son. And so while his mother loves him very, very much and fears for him and worries for him and wants him to have a happy life, she's also not a perfect mother. She gets really frustrated when Hiatus does things that he wasn't created to do. When she brought him to life to be her son, he was made to do certain jobs. He's supposed to look over things when she's resting, clean, do chores, but Hiatus begins to do something that makes her very distressed. He begins to fall in love. And that's something that scares her because it's a really scary world out there. And that's not what he was designed to do. He was never supposed to leave her and join the world. When she had him, she always envisioned a life of them being together forever. And as you can tell, this is kind of a parable for homophobia, but it's not black and white. Like this panic over who he loves and him self-realizing and becoming his own person, it all comes from a place of fear, and while that doesn't justify her actions, she has a human reason for doing what she does. So I absolutely love his mother. I think she is somewhat of an antagonist. They also really do love each other a lot. Like it's a relationship you want to see mended and sewn together. Excuse my sewing metaphors, but you really want them to iron things out. His mom is really funny and she's really caring and she's really powerful. It's just her son didn't turn out how she envisioned him when she designed him. And they also just like each other. They understand each other in ways the rest of the world doesn't understand them. They have this common shared experience about being a monster and a witch, while everyone else is a person. That's why I love their story so much. Sometimes in life, we hurt the people we love the most. We do the wrong thing, we're selfish. I really believe people can change, people can grow, especially if love is there as a foundation. Even when it's scary, even when it's hard, even if it isn't a perfect solution, love finds a way to make it work. And the story really is one of found family. All of the three main characters really need each other. It's a story about friendship and the different forms that love comes in, and about us as people and why we do what we do. But it's also a really funny story, and it's a really fun story, the same way life is funny and fun. Because Hiatus's mother has really sort of lost touch with the world and how it is and how things works. And Hiatus, he's kind of a self-appointed aficionado on the world. Like, he thinks he knows how everything works, but he's usually wrong. There's like an innocence about him that's very charming to me. But he's also he's a little mischievous. I don't know, he's just my little cinnamon roll. I love him. 2. Ruin. The miller named his son Ruin. Meet Ruin! Ruin is one of my favorite characters. He's Hiatus's love interest. He's changed a lot from his initial design. Originally, he was more of an adventurer type. He's also interesting because he used to be 2 characters, and now he's just 1. So you'll see in a lot of the images of me drawing Ruin, he has a different skin tone, and he's often paired with this other twink love interest who has a darker complexion. Actually, the character on the deer never even had a name, and his story didn't match the tone of all the other characters, so he sort of got extracted away from the story at the same time Hiatus was kind of being put in. And because Hiatus is white-coated, I decided to darken Ruin's skin tone, just so there was actually some diversity present in my story. And besides just physical traits, Ruin also absorbed other qualities of the character, such as him being more of an outdoorsy woodsman character in the trope of fairy tales. Before this, Ruin was pretty much just Mr. Darcy from Pride and Prejudice. So let me tell you about Ruin. What's he like? Besides being a himbo. Ruin's fairy tale is a reimagining of the Grimm's fairy tale Iron Hans, which I do a lot of reinterpreting. The story is about a boy becoming a man, and in a lot of ways, Ruin's story is a perfect foil for Hiatus. He has just a teensy-eensy-weensy bit of a tragic backstory. Ugh, it was bound to happen eventually. He was raised in a paper mill by his father, who he didn't have the best relationship with. And behind this mill, there was a great wood, and there was a monster in the woods. Without going into all the details, Ruin has a run-in with this monster, and because of that event, he ends up internalizing a lot of sort of toxic ideas about manhood. This is actually somewhat of a deviation from the original fairy tale. If you read it, the wild man or the monster in the woods is actually somewhat of a benefactor. Like, he provides boons that help the boy in the fairy tale with his adventure. But the lessons of the fairy tale I don't agree with, because it's like, to be a man, you have to fall in love with a woman / princess and go to war. And I, for one, have never fallen in love with a woman, yet I consider myself a man, and I don't think going to war is what makes someone a man. I don't think violence is what makes someone a man. So I've made some changes to the story. Also, there's sort of like a colonialist undertone to the story. The boy has like this golden hair, and the wild man has dark skin, and he's also implied to be a cannibal. So even though he does help this child, it's saying that people of color are uncivilized and savages, and connects them to cannibalism in a very negative light. So that's another reason why I'm glad that I darkened Ruin's complexion, because it sort of subverts that. And it's like, no, let's have the main character in his fairy tale be the person of color. So because of this traumatic event in his childhood, he begins to internalize some not so good ideas about manhood, which causes Ruin to really value strength. He thinks, if I can just be strong enough, I can handle anything. And if I can just be bigger, then I'll be safe. Ruin also becomes much more insular. When he was a child, he used to like share his art that he would make out of the paper around the mill, or poems that he would write. But now he like really keeps that to himself, which is why it's very interesting when he meets Hiatus, because Hiatus has this freedom of expression. Hiatus doesn't censor the way that he talks. He's very camp and effeminate and small, and he feels no shame for his queerness and his gayness and his softness and his smallness. He's perfectly comfortable in his own skin, whereas Ruin is very uncomfortable with his gayness. And these features are very mesmerizing to Ruin. Like, Ruin sort of envies this quality of Hiatus. Ruin's also just so nice. Like, he's very heroic. If he sees someone in danger or who needs help, he's gonna help them. Ruin can't help himself. Ruin's also always looking out for the little guy, and he hates bullies, and he's not fond of meanness either. I've been watching a lot of Heartstopper, as you do, and I have this deep thirst in my heart for gay content that's like, I don't know, you know in The Princess Bride where the kid goes, "Is this a kissing book?" That's the kind of content I want. I want kissing, like, I want my gays to be in love, and I want them to like each other a lot, and it to be indulgent. That doesn't mean they don't have problems. But y'all, I also do love longing. I love like making me wait and making me feel it. Like, building tension in a romantic comedy is something that I also like a lot. I don't know, so I have to find the right balance of not making you wait too long, but making you wait long enough that you'll really want it. So when they finally kiss, oh, that payoff. 3. Folly. Once upon a time. And now we meet the princess of our story. Once upon a time, there were 2 sisters named Prodigy and Folly. Y'all, that line sprung into my head like divine intervention. When I first thought of that, I was like, oh my gosh, I know exactly who these 2 characters are. These are our princesses of the story. They're sisters, Prodigy, the eldest, and next in line for the throne, and her younger sister, Folly. And just by their names, you already know everything about them, and I absolutely love that. Prodigy is practically perfect. She's smart, intelligent, strong, and her younger sister isn't. That's what endeared me to Folly. She's never going to be queen. Her sister is. And because of that, she sort of has a different kind of responsibility, the responsibility of being a princess. She's not supposed to know politics or math. She's supposed to be a good wife and get married advantageously. But getting married advantageously is almost impossible when you're a princess. So she has a lot of suitors, and she's not really interested in any of them. Folly's story is really inspired by 2 things. The first is what makes me angry about Cinderella, and the second is the fairy tale All Kinds of Fur, which is another Grimm's fairy tale that's less known, similar to Iron Hans. So the thing that makes me angry about Cinderella is I grew up reading the Grimm's fairy tale version. So in that version, Cinderella's father is alive, and he's just completely complacent in her abuse, and he never suffers any repercussions for these actions. And I really don't like that. I have a strong desire to investigate this. And then All Kinds of Fur is actually a fairy tale that's somewhat known as the sister fairy tale to Cinderella. In this story, there is no stepmother, but it's the king who's the one that does these atrocities that makes the princess run away from home. This story is more original. It really doesn't fit into the Cinderella or the All Kinds of Fur story perfectly. So it's more similar to how Hiatus' story is a very original fairy tale rather than a more straightforward, if not subversive, retelling like Ruins is. Prodigy as a character is the reason why this doesn't fit neatly into either camp. She's not an ugly stepsister who's evil and malicious, and she's not a horrific dad. Prodigy is dealing with the misogyny in the world around them just as much as Folly is. In the process of her trying to find liberation, she doesn't want to get married. She's like, I'm going to be a virgin queen. That puts a lot of pressure on Folly to live this very heteronormative life where she needs to get married, start pumping out babies. That way, there will be a line of succession for the throne. Folly, as you can imagine, isn't too keen on this, so she begins sneaking out of the castle grounds at night and sometimes during the day with a disguise that she made out of rags, servant clothes, and a clock that she found on the castle grounds that's about the size of a head. She balances it on top of her head, you know, like how princesses do in the movies where they have to balance books on their heads. I imagine that she has this like uncanny ability to be able to balance anything on her head. So she puts the clock on her head and then wraps herself up in this disguise, and in this costume goes by the name Clockface. Clockface can do many things Folly can't. They can sleep under the stars, they can leave the castle grounds unescorted, they can get a job and work for money and earn a wage. All things that Folly finds really exciting and liberating. Clockface can talk to people Folly can't. It doesn't have rules and protocol. And so Folly finds in this gray area of gender this sort of liberation. And Prodigy is completely unaware of all of this, of her sister's unhappiness, like Folly isn't speaking up for herself. And as far as the oldest sibling is worried about, Prodigy is just trying to marry Folly off to the right suitor. And this is the finished design. I love how this turned out. It felt really fun recording this video, just telling their story out loud. Oh my gosh, it gave me goosebumps. I love this like triptych of these 3 scenes of each character. I think it really depicts their vibes so well, from Hiatus in the center with his mom and their like relationship, how it's like one wants to like explore and see and feel, and she just wants him to not get hurt, to Ruin just standing there, looking dazzling in the middle of a forest, and Prodigy and Folly to the left in like a castle curated garden instead of like a wild pumpkin patch like Hiatus or a fairy tale wood like Ruin. If you made it this far, thank you so much for listening to this story. It means like so much to me. Let me know in the comments, what do you think? What are your thoughts? Do you like them? I hope you like them. Which one's your favorite? What do you think about the tropes, the world, or just the art? I don't know. Do you have any opinions about the shape language? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you liked this video, please like, subscribe, share this with your friends, or if you really liked it, click the link in the description and follow me on Patreon, because I really love this story and I love making other videos like fan content as well, and I am only going to be able to keep doing that with support from people like you. For as little as like $4, you can get your name in the end credits, and it makes a huge difference. And now it's that time again, folks, for the end credits. Special thanks to Blue MOE, Game of Catan on IG, Gay Jairus, Melon, Prance, SL Blue, Smalls the Sax Jammer, Thumper Daytime, Tarthalinor, Tuesdays Anyways, and Tuppets Pies. My name is Nathan. I upload every Wednesday and Saturday, and I'll see you soon. Bye!